Oh, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our October 10th Town Council meeting. Hold on a second here. Somebody start. Just need to go over a little housekeeping. In the event of an emergency, there are two doors to your left, another door at the front of council chambers. We would exit the building, cross Middle Road, and await further instruction at the school administration building. Also, we are live streaming tonight, as always. So those of you that might be participating on Zoom, there's an icon, a hand icon to indicate you have a question. If you're calling in on a phone, *6 to mute and unmute your phone. *9 would indicate to the host that you have a question. If you're speaking at the podium tonight or participating remotely, prior to speaking, please state your name and address for the town clerk. And with that, we will stand for a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence for our men and women serving in harm's way. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Okay, next we'll do our roll call.
Mr. Katzman?
Here.
Ms. Levesque? Here. Mr. Gleason?
Here.
Mr. Hamilton?
Here.
Mr. Levesque?
Here.
Dr. Ryan?
Here.
Mr. Aguiar?
Here. Okay, moving on, President's executive summary. We did not have an executive session tonight, so there's nothing to report out. We'll move on to our consent agenda. We have bills.
Motion to approve as presented.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next, we have minutes from our September 25th meeting.
Move they be approved as printed.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next, we have tax voucher. Request approval for tax voucher 2023 1010-01 to 2023-1010-20.
Will they be approved as requested by the tax collector?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Moving on to our town administrators report. Mr. Rayner.
Good evening, Mr. President, Town Council, ladies and gentlemen. We have one more waste and recycling event left this year. That's the e-waste recycling event. That'll be held December 14th at the Portsmouth High School, and that'll be from 9 to 12. The collection event is going to be open to all Rhode Island residents, and we will post another reminder as we get closer to the date. A truck will be stationed as we had discussed with Prudence last year. So there'll be a truck on Prudence at the Prudence Island Transfer Station 1 week before the e-waste events, so that they can collect e-waste on Prudence Island and transport the e-waste back to the high school and for the Saturday event. Parks and Rec will host a Harvest Festival Committee this Sunday, October 15th at Glen Park. That will run from 1:30 to 4:30. It's free to all, and there will be live music, kids activities, and concessions. If necessary, a rain date will be the following Sunday on October 22nd. I was asked to provide a quick update regarding the Church Community Senior Center project. We are still awaiting approval of the Small Cities Community Development Block Grant, which was submitted by the town on July 12th. This grant will provide the funds to acquire the senior center condominium component of the project. The CDBG applications are currently under review, and we expect award announcements any day now. Work is still continuing on the development of the 100% construction plans and specifications, and additionally, test holes for the project's required septic system have recently been completed. And the start of construction is still anticipated to be in mid to late spring 2024. And then lastly, just a reminder that the October 23rd Town Council meeting will take place at the Portsmouth High School Auditorium. The start time will still be 7 p.m. and people will be able to participate remotely. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I noticed that Senator Matthews is here and some members of the Senior Center. I believe that I had requested this matter be kind of brought on just to discuss what was going on down there. And I received a very nice phone call from Senator Matthews advising me of what was going on. And we have been graced with a brochure here that indicates a lot of the activities. Again, what happened was I just took a drive by. I saw the activity really associated with the senior center, but did not see any activity on the field behind. I know this was an area of strong contention at one point, and it seems to me that it's evolving pretty well. I would like to ask the indulgence of the council. I think it's appropriate for the senator or her designee to come up and just give
That's
the
new business
council a
one.
little bit of indication of what's going on down there.
That's new business one.
What's that?
That's new business one.
There you go. Then I need no indulgence. All right. How did I miss that?
We buried it in the agenda.
There's no backup. So you didn't read up on it.
All right, Mr. President, then I would move that we accept the administrator's report as presented.
We're good. Yeah, we just,
Okay.
we don't need to. Yeah, we're gonna move on to resignations and appointments. The first is the resignation of David Belzarian from the Juvenile Hearing Board.
Move to accept with regret.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. And then we have appointments. It's a reappointment to the Juvenile Hearing Board for Mr. Paul Kelly.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. And then we have an appointment to the Dog Park Committee for Richard Nassau.
Move to approve.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. So we're going to move on to old business. First item under old business is the Community Electricity Aggregate Program update. Come on up.
Hello, council. Thank you for having me. I'm Patrick Roach with Good Energy. So Good Energy is the town's consultant to help develop and operate the Portsmouth Community Electricity Program. And I believe we have a few slides to pull up just to do a quick review of how the program's performed and where we are headed next. And then we're happy to take questions on that. Great. So yeah, the primary purpose why I'm here is that the program is soon to be finishing up its first 6 months in operation, launched in May. And the prices that we launched with were fixed for 6 months, and we'll be going into a new 6-month fixed rate period. So the town is advertising these new rates, and we just wanted to come here to tell everyone about it as well, and answer any questions related to that. So first, just looking back a little bit at program performance. So in the first 3 months of the program, we always get data. It's a little bit delayed. So May through July, the program purchased almost 2,500 megawatts of additional renewable energy above and beyond the state standard. And that equates to about 2 million pounds of carbon dioxide emissions avoided compared to what you would have done otherwise. And that sort of, you could conceptualize that as about 190 gasoline powered vehicles off the road for a year. And so that's just the first 3 months. And then we also look at from the financial side of things, residents or all participants, but most of the participants are residential accounts. They've saved about $120,000 total compared to Rhode Island Energy's supply costs. And if we were extrapolating that out to the end of October, we're seeing that rising to probably about $600,000 that will be saved over those first 6 months. So I think the program, just as a reminder, it offers a number of options in the program. The default one, the one that most of the community is enrolled in, has a little bit extra renewable energy and is also trying to be cheaper than Rhode Island Energy. So that goal, I think, was really hit for these first 6 months. It had 5% more renewable energy from Rhode Island sources, and we were cheaper, and that's where those cost savings primarily come from. So then this table has the prices for the upcoming term. So those will start with the November meter read, and they'll go through the April meter read. So the program is a sort of a month off. As you may have heard, Rhode Island Energy's prices, they're changing on the October meter read. And they're also, so both our prices and Rhode Island Energy's prices are going up. The reasons for this, the reasons that our prices or your prices are going up are very similar to why Rhode Island Energy's are going up, in the sense that the winter months, natural gas is the driver of cost of electricity. And there's a lot more demand for natural gas for home heating in the region. And so we tend to see higher winter prices. And we're still dealing with some of the sort of price shocks from the invasion of Ukraine and some of those supply disruptions. So that's why, this winter is very similar to last winter's prices in terms of being so high. So the program is coming in a little bit lower than Rhode Island Energy. So we will be for the default rate in Portsmouth's program be at 17.641. Whereas Rhode Island Energy will be 17.741. So we're just a little bit cheaper, but that does also include that extra 5% renewable energy. So the program will still be a little cheaper and a little cleaner. For anyone who is, interested in getting maybe as much savings as they can, I do want to remind folks that we have the Portsmouth Basic option, which would be 17.4. So that would help you save just a little bit more. And if you're in the program, you can change options at any time. So you can either do that on the website, you can fill out a form, or you can call the supplier. And that website should have it on here, but it's electricity.portsmouth.ri.gov, or there we go. So you can go on there, find the phone number, fill out the online form, and you're welcome to switch products we also have the 50% and 100% options as well for those who want even more renewables. So yes, prices are going up for sure. It's sort of kind of what is in line with the market, but we're happy to be a little bit cheaper. And we're hoping that moving forward with the program, as we look, we can hope to get more savings in the future as we kind of come out of some of these historic kind of prices that we're locked into. So those are the residential prices. The next slide, I won't go through this all, but if you're a business who's got a commercial rate or a large business who would be on the industrial rate, there are different prices there, but all of them are also still below Rhode Island Energy's price. And this is just a price chart, just showing Rhode Island Energy in blue going way back. You can see that last year and this winter are definitely out of line historically with where those winter prices have been. So, we're hoping to see as we move forward, those things come back more to the more historic levels that we've seen. So I'm here tonight to answer questions. The town's put out a press release. It's up on the website. We're doing some ways to get out the word with meetings, social media. We've got another Zoom meeting that anyone can attend coming up on the 16th. We had another one a few days ago on the 4th. So people don't need to do anything. If you're in the program, whatever product you're in, you'll just automatically be, moved to that rate. But you're welcome to switch products, and you can always leave the program at any time as well if you want to do that. So that concludes my presentation, and happy to answer questions.
No, Patrick, thank you for the update. So far, it's performing better than what was initially expected. We thought it might be a little higher. So it's come in under, even with the added 5%, right?
Exactly.
Renewable. So it seems to be working out well for those that are participating. Any questions, comments from counselors? Okay, there's no action is needed. This was really just for information. So thank you very much for the update.
Excellent. Yep, the website has more information if anyone needs it.
Thanks. Okay, we're going to move on to old business number 2, which is an update on the Harbor Commission Subcommittee's progress on the beach problems. Ms. Brown?
Good evening, Abigail Brown, 104 Bayview Avenue. I'm here to tell you that on October 4th at the Harbor Commission meeting that the Harbor Commission voted to accept the ordinances and suggestions that the subcommittee has come forth with that I believe you all have in front of you. I would like if you would just take a couple of minutes, look it over, and if you have any questions at all, Mr. Grebe and Carol Mello and Larry Walsh are here to answer them for you.
These are the suggested ordinance modifications or new ordinances that just to high level that have come up to address problems at the beach. Now, is this for all beaches? Because it's an ordinance, so it applies to all properties.
All beaches, yes, all shorelines.
All the
We're
shorelines.
starting to call them shorelines now.
Okay. And then there's some suggested organizational responses just for the Secana. Okay,
Yes.
so any ordinance changes or new ordinances, we'd have to go through the proper procedures for a public hearing and whatnot, which is all viable. I think if you want to speak to anything specific tonight, that now's your opportunity. The council really cannot take any action tonight, but what I hope we would do is refer this to the town administrator and staff to go through and cross-check and vet the ordinances, get input, and bring that back to the council at a future date, so that if we do need to include some new ordinances or modifications, we go through the proper channels of a public hearing. So that would be the big picture. But if there's anything specific with any of these suggestions that you want to highlight for the council, now's your opportunity.
Talk about some of these things now.
You want to talk about the problems or?
Well, I
Well aware of
think
the
we're already aware of the problems. I
Well
think
aware of the
we
problems.
beat that dead horse already. We already know this. Yeah, we know the problems. I just didn't know if you wanted anything specific. If they're gonna look at this and go through it, then I guess.
Yeah. If anybody has any questions on what's on the paper, I'm happy to address it, but if you're satisfied and are willing to pass this on to the administration to pursue.
Well, if you hadn't used the word satisfied, a couple problems before we refer it, I think. This is kind of a big ask the administration. No camping on beaches. What is camping? How late can you be there? If you have a sleeping bag with you and you're with a couple of friends, can you be there at 11? Can you be there at 10? Can you be there at 2?
Well, we want to do the dawn to dusk. That's what,
What's that?
I haven't said my name yet. I should say my name because I'm talking a lot. Carol Mello, 158 Massasoit Avenue, Portsmouth, Rhode Island.
Ms. Mello, can I just indicate to you, I'm just addressing some questions I have with what
Oh.
you've presented.
Oh.
And suggesting that the administration may or may not want to take into consideration my concerns, not necessarily what the commission has decided.
Okay. I thought you were asking me, sorry.
No? It's entirely possible somebody may want to follow up with you and get your impressions, but that's not me. The question that the president brought up, what do we consider a beach? And what are we trying to control, as we have had previously discussions about what in fact is accessible to the public in general. There is a dispute as to what is in fact a land or a shoreline abutters property and a property that somebody else could use. Will we run into a problem trying to distinguish that? Are we actually anticipating that we will ask our police to go down and investigate, monitor, or otherwise enforce this? If you would know, probably in all likelihood, these events might be occurring on Friday and Saturday nights when there was a lot of other activity. I speak with a little personal experience as somebody who was kicked off a couple of beaches when I was younger, trying to thumb down the Florida, for instance. One of the problems that happens is when you get kicked off the beach, you just move further inland. That's all that happens. Because you gotta sleep and you're gonna sleep somewhere. All right. I agree that there should be no public urination and defecation. By the way, I also agree with the determination that the disorderly conduct makes it sound like, and is also sometimes enforced as a sexual crime. And it is certainly not usually at all a sexual thing. It is a urination or defecation. I would point out again and ask the administration to take into account, if you don't provide any place for people to go, my niece gave me a book that said everybody poops. And if in fact you don't have a place to go, you're going to improvise. Perhaps we can put a sign up on the highway saying everyone welcome, no public restrooms. Okay, dusk to dawn right away prohibition, I will tell you the same issue arises with regard to pushing it out. You have no parking around the high school, pushes it out. You have no parking in a certain area, pushes it out. Many of the people doing certain activities like going to beaches late at night, they're young. Going an extra mile does not bother them. Okay, me, if I can't park there, I'd go home. But all right, Shoreline areas with alcohol prohibition. Interesting problem, seeing as one, a lot of people do go to the beach, fishermen, normal beachgoers, whatever. Some of you may remember that Tiverton used to always have a fracas over on their little remnant of the stone bridge, because the chief over there thought any open container was a violation of the law, and the police were supposed to enforce it. This was Asa DeBoer, maybe before your time, chief. Okay, private shoreline properties with a valid permit that they can have. Interesting problem. I mean, I don't know that you need anything necessary for, well, those are the ones that I necessarily had, the first one. Because the noise ordinance, I agree, being on the beach doesn't give you a special permit to make louder noise that would disturb your neighbor. The noise ordinance is sufficient. I believe that we basically have a requirement that dogs be on a leash, and the fireworks probably should be updated, just because I don't know the last time we looked at it. But those are my concerns with respect to the ordinance modifications. And I'll just remind you, my concern originally was that this would go to an enforcement type of perspective, which I did not think was the best perspective to have. I believe the council overruled me on that, and I understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Levesque. So
I just have one quick comment on the alcohol. I understand alcohol. I think we just need to change that to public shorelines. I don't think we could tell somebody with deeded beach rights that they can't have a drink on their beach. That might go a little bit too far.
On that private, I don't think we put that.
It says prohibit alcohol on shoreline areas, period, not just consumption of alcohol. This means possession of open, closed containers on shoreline areas is prohibited and alcohol can be confiscated.
In
It
front of
doesn't
their
specifically
house,
say,
no.
so we just need
Yeah,
to
that
put
needs to
public
change,
areas.
yeah.
So if Mr. Grebe and Mrs. Grebe want to go down to their beach, they can have a drink and watch the sunset.
I thought we had that. Changed
So
it.
we're just going to make it
got
public
overlooked,
beach areas.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not gonna
Hmm.
stop Tom from having a beer.
Well, I mean, at this point, I think you've, obviously, there's been a lot of hard work that's gone into this. So that's why I know some other counselors want to speak, but I think the best thing for us is going to be to refer it to the town administrator and the appropriate staff, legal counsel, get everybody's, feedback on it. And then again, it would come to a public hearing for any type of ordinance change.
Right, and I believe that a lot of the ordinances are outdated, especially the fires and the fireworks one, there's a lot of them. haven't
There'll be
been
an
touched in a-
opportunity for the department heads to weigh in, police, fire as well, our solicitor. So everybody will have a chance to at least review these things in a little more context and then bring it back to the council. And then we go from there.
Okay, would I be able to ask a question to Mr. Rayner?
Yep, but I just want to get through a couple more of the counselors.
Okay, sure.
I think Mr. Gleason.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I think the Harbor Commission has done their task that we assigned to them. And, they're not lawyers. I was involved in the
No.
process. We know there's more work to be done here, but it was just to bring up the weaknesses that we have in some of the ordinance that have been on the books for X amount of years. As Councilor Levesque said, maybe there's nothing that needs to be done as far as the noise ordinance. We're covered already, the leash law, but they're all thrown in there. I know there was also communication between the committee and Chief Ford and Chief Peters on some of these items in particular. Regarding the fire ordinances, how we handle that now. The thing with the alcohol, where they've put prohibit alcohol in shoreline areas, period. Right now, an individual can bring their 24 pack down to the beach and sit it next to them in their fishing rod. And unless, they can open that bottle, and unless it's witnessed by a police officer, there's really nothing that can be done to arrest any of those individuals. So
the thought was just eliminate it altogether. If somebody brings it there, the intent is that they're probably going to want to open that beer and drink it. And this kind of gets that problem out of the way, gives the police department some ability to enforce this in a practical manner. I agree that the next route would be for the staff to take a stab at these with our solicitor and each individual organization that's affected by this. And I'm ready to make a motion to that effect. And we could carry on conversation from there. But I would motion to,
I'll second that motion.
I'll make it.
I
Okay.
thought you said it would to that effect, but go
Well,
ahead.
basically, it's a motion to move forward with the implementation of the Harbor Commission suggestions as provided. And for town staff to work on new and proposed ordinances for the town council approval prior to advertising for public hearing.
And I'll second that. I would like to just say, thank you. This represents, I know, a lot of work by the Harbor Commission. Whether, I'm sure we won't land exactly on this as laid out, but this, I think, covers all of the things that should be considered, and this will come back before the council and we'll consider.
And I just want to say one more thing. I do believe that these ordinances, some of them at least, for Chief Peters will actually help him do his job, because he can't act on some of these things because there's nothing written in the books.
Right.
So he has no leg to stand on, really. So
Two of them.
well, yeah, he knows what I mean. He's done an awesome job, but it's hard when you don't have the laws, the ordinances, and something to back you up.
Thank you.
I would appreciate that.
As I clearly indicated, the motion seems to indicate approbation or approval of what has been done. I have neither. So I would like to ask that, I would like to mention that it should not be taken that we believe this is the appropriate direction to go. I, for one, do not. Number two, I would actually very much like to see the minutes of the Harbor Commission's meeting when they are approved, which I assume would be the beginning of next month, so that we can have that input from whatever sources you derive that information delivered to the administrator for his review.
If I may ask a question.
Sure.
Because I seconded it, because I support the idea. As I want to make sure I understand what the motion is, as you restated it, is that all of these items will be reviewed for implementation, but brought back before this council before any actual implementation. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
I think the motion was to bring it back for us to then request an advertisement of it before we even implement it from there.
Right.
For a public
Yeah,
hearing.
right.
Yeah, for a public
For a
hearing.
public
Thank
hearing.
Let me remind you, if we
Right.
if we send something with direction to proceed in a certain direction, the administration will try to proceed in that direction. Okay, I am saying we're not giving them that direction. We have an issue. These are some suggested remedies for that issue, and they should go. All of the things you described as part of an ordinance making, normal course of behavior. They can't, nobody can, the administration can't enact these.
Right.
They have to come back. I just don't want them to come back with something and I will be sitting here saying, no, I had no plan on doing it. The 5 of you might, or 6 of you might feel totally different. I'm just saying they could rightly say, given the motion, this is what we were given as marching orders. So as far as I'm concerned, just understand, that's not my marching order.
Thank you.
Just one other comment. I don't think that this should be confined to just these. I think if the administration has better ideas than some laymen that were put before them with this task, then bring them forward. I mean,
Yeah.
we have a problem we'd like to solve. And I'm not,
We're not experts on civil disobedience, but we tried our best to find the loopholes with the problems that we had. There still is a lot of problems and happening on shorelines and at Mount View and other places. And this was our best shot at trying to dig through and
No, I agree with, all the comments these are all good comments that are being presented tonight. And I mean, I believe the course of action now is to refer it to the staff. Have staff review it for context and then maybe there'll be some recommendations, maybe there'll be some changes.
Yeah.
But that would come back to the council.
Good.
Because the next step would then be to have a public meeting for further discussion. So really, it's just part of the process. It's a vetting process. And at the end of the day, we're looking to see what can be done to address some of the problems. We may not get them all, but we might get a lot of them out of the way.
The important ones.
I think they're all important. We'll just see what we can
There's
do.
some that are more important than others, but anyway.
Okay, so we do have a motion and a second. Any further, is there anything online? I don't want to miss anybody. Okay. Do you have a motion and a second? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
I just had a
Thank you
quick,
very much.
I just had one quick question. I
Too
just
late.
wondered,
Too late.
sorry. I just wondered, do you have any updates on any of these, the RIDOT and Coast Guard?
Well,
Railroad,
that's not part of.
No, not yet.
Nothing?
No, but I'll communicate with the Harbor Commission.
Okay. thanks.
Absolutely, as soon as I hear.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Okay, we are going to move on now to new business. And we're going to get a report on the current senior center activities. Come on. You're clairvoyant.
Hey, I'm Cynthia Konecki, Director for the Portsmouth Senior Center. I want to thank the council for allowing us to be here to express the opportunity to what we all do at the senior center. And it's quite a few things that we do. And first of all, we try to gain membership so we can provide more services to the community. So if you look in your packet, we gave you all a new membership. So all of you who are over 55 sitting there are allowed to join and find out what we're doing. So although we do get we get a civic grant from the town, which we appreciate that, but we need individual support. So this way, this keeps you abreast on what we do at the senior center, because you'll get that lovely newsletter.
Just 1 second. Watch your wise comments, all right? Yeah, some of it are way beyond. I'm 39.
Don't worry, I can Google it. So. All right, so if you look at the newsletter itself, it explains what we do on a monthly basis. As you see in October, we had the flu clinic, we have the holiday raffle. We have Medicare open enrollment, which is a big thing from October to December 15th. And we've had several we had trips that went on. We had 4 trips this year. Encore, which was the casino and resort in Boston. We had
Plymouth.
the Plymouth, yeah, I'm thinking of the paddle boat, yeah, the Pilgrim paddle boat and the winery, which we did quite well at the winery. And the spirit, pardon?
Sensing a theme here.
Yeah, we had 5 different tastes of wine. We had Spirit of Boston, we had a luncheon, we had the cruise, we had dancing, and we went to Faneuil Hall and we went shopping at the square there. So it was quite interesting. So those are all sold out, plus the Newport Playhouse. So if you want to go Newport Playhouse, it's too late now. We're already sold out on that. So we've been doing very well on our trips. Now, we also have a pamphlet. Now that we give out to all our new people, and it just tells you what events and what activities that we have there. And then if you look at the activities in the October newsletter, it tells you what we have on a daily basis. And it does fluctuate on different days. but we do have two Tai Chi Kwang days, which is balance. We have a balance and strength, 2 classes for that. We have Zumba, and we have pool. We have our walking club, our video club. We have 3 musical groups. So we're quite active, considering that we're limited on the space that we have there now. So we do improvise. We don't have the bazaar any longer. We don't have the yard sale, but we're improvising. We do have the calendar raffle. We're still having the bazaar raffle. So people actually stepped up to the plate and now contributing more money because they feel bad that, you know, we lost a lot of funding. But, you know, I think we're doing quite well, and I'm anxious to get into the new building. And we're always looking for something new to do. We're looking for something like Tai Chi. That's really popular, but it's hard to find an instructor on that. So if you know anybody, please send us a, you know, on our way. We do outsource too. We our line dancing, our Zumba class. Line dance goes to Conference Point. Zumba goes to the lodge, the Masonic Lodge. I still call it the Masonic Lodge. We're having Jim Garman. He's going to be next week. He's going to be at the lodge, and they're going to talk about bridges and ferries. So we're putting that on. So there's a lot going on, and we also got a Christmas party going on. So if there's anything that you need to know, we're here, but we're not only a social club. We're
Receiving a
is
donation.
this a check? Oh, I'll take it. No, I thought it was just like, oh, I got a check already, and I just been up here a few minutes. Okay, you just lost my train of thought by giving me money. So, yeah, that's, going back to the, we also are information referral. So yes, we like playing funny games, but when people need assistance, you know, where can we go to help our elderly parents? They need assistance with either Meals on Wheels, Alzheimer's, dementia, elder abuse. So we're there for other reasons, just for a social club. So, and people don't see that side because we don't announce that. That's a lot of it's HIPAA Act. But we do get quite a few phone calls on, you know, taking care of their parents and where can they go? What can we do? What resources are out there? So, but that's what we're all about, and plus more.
Again, thank you very much. How is your relationship going with the folks who are going to be putting up the shell or whatever for you folks to move into? How are you dealing with, I think it's church community?
Church community,
Yeah,
we have a good rapport.
okay,
Yeah, I have no problem with them.
all right.
That's
and
been
they're-
going
they're
quite
working
well.
With you, do you have any idea when they might be able to, I mean, we talked already about some funding we need to help them with, but have they given you any idea when you might be able to have the new shell someplace to move into?
We don't know when we're gonna go in, but I knew that they were talking about probably, you know, putting the shovel in the ground sometime in June. So that's a beginning, but the senior center is supposed to, from what I heard, is supposed to be built first. And then we go in there, and then they'll knock down the old building and then, you know, proceed from there.
Okay.
But that's as far as we know now. We don't,
Let me just say, the center has always, going back to Helen's mom's day, has always been a center of activity, back to Josephine. And it is really, while quite frankly, I think the recreational is essential. I really don't mean to put, but the other things, the flu the flu shot, the Medicare enrollment, the one-stop, all of those things, I've had people talk to me over all the years. That's an invaluable part of what the center can do. And again, I just wanted to catch up. And I appreciate actually Senator Matthews calling me and this being put on the agenda. And I'm happy to see that things are moving along.
well, you're more than welcome to come and visit us, and I'll give you a tour.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was in that library more times. I remember being back there when Huck Little was still pounding nails, Ellen. So I appreciate that. I've eaten more meals there than probably most people too. Back in the day, everybody used to have the fundraisers there.
Well, we missed the meals. We're losing 5,000 meals a year.
Wow. Yeah.
And people still call, when are we gonna get our meal site back? Because that wasn't an important part of the community, which is
Yeah.
sad, but it is what it
Hopefully
is.
it will be back soon. Hopefully it will be back in time for Mr. Hamilton to really enjoy it.
And join.
Cynthia, before you run away, can you just tell us and the general public how many members you have at this current time, roughly?
On average, 700.
700. Pretty amazing.
Mhm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Cindy.
Okay. All right, we're gonna move on to new business number 2. It's request approval of $20,619 in opera funding for the purchase of a new assembly of a 14 by 40 foot enclosure to shelter fire apparatus out on Prudence Island. Is Chief Lund? Is he remote? Yeah, we need to.
Mr. President, the letter is fairly
I
self-explanatory.
know. I think he's online now.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a $20,000 request for a $35,000 set aside that we had, so I would move that we approve the.
We have a motion in a second.
Yes,
Any-
motion.
Any further questions, comments? Okay, I was gonna let the chief speak, but all right, so
You can chat with us on Saturday.
exactly.
How persuasive he is.
Hey, when you know how to write.
Okay, so we have a motion in a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Chief, you don't even need to say anything. Everything's been approved. And we'll see you on Saturday. All right, let's move on to new business number 3. It's a public hearing. It's a request from Andrew Jones for approval of a variance to the sound limit set forth in the Portsmouth noise ordinance for a neighborhood block party in the Taylor Road cul-de-sac, Portsmouth on October 28th from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. The event date was changed from the 22nd to the 28th.
Is this require a public hearing?
Yes, because it's a noise.
I would
variance.
move that be advertised for a public hearing.
This is the public.
This is-
hearing.
This is
This is the
public
public
hearing.
hearing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I
so
missed the first part.
Mr. Jones.
Andrew Jones, 122 Wapping Road. So each year we've been having a block party, which is basically a Halloween party, and we wanted to have a DJ. So we want to make sure just that we went through the right channels. And because it's amplified music, we needed to file for a variance for the sound ordinance.
Are you planning on blocking off any of the roads? Have you reviewed any of your plans with?
Yes, so I've been in
chiefs?
contact with Lieutenant O'Neill from the police department, and he has given me all the information necessary. So we do block with cones, but not any vehicles as per his request and as per those rules.
Perfect. And Chief Ford, you have. Your department doesn't have any issues with block party down there, as long as you have access. I move that we approve the variance. I guess we gotta close the public hearing first,
I presume all the abutters have been informed of.
except you.
That's why I'm asking.
You're more than the
I'm
distant.
trying to catch him in a lie, eh?
You're 205 feet. Sorry. Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Public hearing.
Motion to approve the noise variance from 2 to 8 from October 28th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7.
Good luck. Have fun.
Thank you. Okay. Next, under new business, It's number 4. It's request consideration of recommendations for a more transparent government. Mr. Gleason is your item.
Thank you. As you recall, this was pulled from correspondence. This is a letter from Ted Peets. And I'd like to start off by letting Ted present that to us.
All right, for the record, my name is Theodore Pease of 85 Plum Road. Greetings, esteemed counselors, and thank you for placing this important topic on tonight's agenda. The impetus of this effort is to ensure that the written records relevant to the decision-making of our town are accessible to the public, the media, and other regional and state entities. The first topic is providing the town boards, commissions, and advisory committee uniform guidance in terms of posting meeting minutes in draft, approved, and if applicable, revised format. The Rhode Island Secretary of State web portal is uniform for all 39 municipalities and lists pertinent document attributes, such as the timestamp and the name of the poster, which will allow for traceability of the document and provide an initial point of contact. An additional benefit would be limiting potential vendor lock-in for this town process. The second recommendation provides amplifying information to the public regarding how items are added to the agenda for regularly scheduled meetings of this council. Perhaps I'm going to go out on a limb here, but I would surmise that all of us in these chambers would want to put forth a clear understanding of the overall process of requesting agenda items and ensuring that we can avoid wasting or having wasted trips to town hall by members of our community. The final recommendation expands on what is stated in our town charter, where we can utilize the public-facing file repository for our town's solicitor to post advisory opinion, which is required to be public information per our town charter. This would eliminate both from needing to request this information from the town clerk, and more importantly, allow the public to gather this information from an official source instead of potential hearsay. In closing, the intent of what was laid out before you tonight is not an attempt to become overly prescriptive and bogged down in mechanics. The intended primary objective tonight is to determine if there can be a philosophical alignment regarding these 3 topics and to move to accept all of the proposed recommendations as outlaid in my letter. Thank you, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. President.
Yep.
Oh, well, I didn't put this agenda. If you want to go first. Yeah. First, I'd like to thank Mr. Peets for raising these topics to discussion level. To my council member Levesque's point of giving administration direction and then following out, I understand that maybe one size fits all isn't the right way to go in terms of that item number 1, in terms of using the Secretary of State website. There might be issues with that. That said, I think there should be a uniform set of guidance so that everybody, every board and commission gets a type of guidance, whether if they're an advisory body, if they're a independently acting, depending on what the charter of the commission or committee is, to follow, so that they know what the rules are from the outset, and they don't have to ask every few years when through turnover and attrition simply don't know. So I do appreciate that. On item number 2, so this council, not this council, the town council of Portsmouth back in 2006 adopted a resolution. It's still stands. It's resolution 2006-01-23.
You sure it's 23?
It's what right there in front of me. Yeah.
Just making sure. Everybody get that?
I remember that because I was the one who
You wrote it, huh?
I did. But it did not get adopted in the form that I presented it. It was
boo.
deliberated and actually pared down. But section 210 of the charter requires that we have some means of having the electors access the issues that they want to hear. So in light of the fact that the charter requires a process, this is the process that was adopted. So we have a process. It's very uncomplicated. Any elector, I'm reading from it, any elector, that's a resident of, a citizen of the town, may ask the town clerk to place an item on a town council meeting agenda, period. That's it. I had originally drafted more to say things along the lines of, and the clerk shall not refuse that request except in, you know, in these circumstances, not unilaterally, but in communication with the town administrator, the council president, the town solicitor, things like that. I don't remember everything I had in there because it was going on 20 years ago. And so I think that the idea that people should know why things might be, people should know, number one, that it's not an arbitrary decision by the clerk, right? That you give something to the clerk, it doesn't just end there. And two, some reasonable criteria that's knowable. Could be duplicative of another thing that somebody just handed to the clerk, could be something that's subject to labor union negotiations. We can't talk about it in public. There's a whole list of reasons, and it might not be possible to put together a comprehensive set of reasons. But I think it's fair to have some knowable parameters. Because that's frankly what happens in practice. Things go on the agenda unless there's a reason. So that's what happens in practice. It's just not written what that practice, what the rules are. I would want to hear from town administration as to how arduous a burden it might be to try to craft publicly acceptable written rule. What happened back in 2006 is I put together a set of criteria. Everybody misunderstood, I shouldn't say everybody, lots of people misunderstood what I was trying to do and presumed I was trying to keep people from getting at the agenda. That wasn't what I was trying to do. I was trying to provide a process. And because my intent was misunderstood, we now have that was all deleted. And what we have now is may ask the clerk to put it on the agenda. And that's it. There's no process after that. And I will defer to others on that item number 3 of yours in terms of opinions of the solicitor. I think there's some issues with that. Thank you.
Mr. Cleveland, did you?
Sure, thank you. I don't think Ted brought up the section 3, and I understand we're not really going to discuss this at this point. But regarding the other 2 items, while we're on 2, I would think the last person that's looking to put something on the agenda is going to say, let's look in this town charter. That being a weakness for me, as opposed to, I'm going to call Jennifer West. What's the procedure? And she had a little piece of paper that said, you know, you just have to submit it by Tuesday of the meeting before such and such, you know, give us backup if there is any. I guess the open areas that aren't really being addressed that Mr. Pete seems to be suggesting here is, you know, if somebody decides, and I believe this has happened in the past, that we're not going to listen, we're not going to put that on the agenda for whatever reason. The person should be notified why. You know, is it not within the purview of the town council? The town council needs more time to review, come back at another time, et cetera, together with, you know, just a tip off to the person that wants to be on the agenda. Hey, they're going to listen to you on Monday, rather than just get it to you on a Friday and say, surprise, okay, so you better bone up and you're going to be talking on Monday. So unless I've misunderstood, I think you're just trying to get some more clarification into what a person should hear from the town clerk relative to, you know, putting an agenda item on.
Which is what we do.
Yeah.
But we can't let the rules are with regards to what goes on the agenda doesn't go out until the agenda is posted.
Sure.
So, you know, we try to let them know.
You probably call them on Friday.
Or,
as it is.
or Thursday in email.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we do.
So, yeah. That's probably happening already.
If I may just quickly on the reference to the charter. I wasn't referencing the charter on the idea that members of the public would look there for how to get on the agenda. Rather, the charter says the council shall adopt rules and regs regarding provisions for granting an elector an opportunity to be heard. So I was referencing the charter to say that it's our, I was referencing the charter for the directive that it's our job to make sure there is rules and regulations that provide access.
The only part just going on, back to the charter is I don't like the word may, which assumes that you may or you may not, with that word, but whatever, it's on the charter at this point.
No, the
Yeah,
charter says shall make rules.
Shall,
Our rules say may.
may allow it. on the
Yeah,
agenda.
so
So there is a
Exactly.
gray area there.
Yeah.
But getting back to the first item, I believe in Rhode Island, it's mandatory that, I know it's mandatory, you have to post 2 days, 24 hours, 48 hours, I should say.
48 business days.
48
48
hours.
business
Business
hours.
hours.
Yeah,
Business
Business hours,
hours.
48 business days.
With the Secretary of State's website, and you need a password, and there's a whole process for doing that. But as far as posting minutes goes, I believe a lot of communities probably use the Secretary of State's website, but I don't believe that part is mandatory. Is that a fair statement?
If you've not posted before, you don't have to. If you've done it, then you do. The big four are the ones that they definitely want, which would be council, school committee, planning, zoning. Those they'd like to have everybody post their minutes.
Sure.
to.
Right.
The smaller groups, not necessarily post their minutes, they can, but that's not that's not a specific requirement like the agricultural committee.
Right.
So,
But whether they're posted on that website or not, they're probably not going to be. There should be an area for people that want to say, well, what is the Ag Committee doing? Or what is the Economic Development Committee doing? And there should be minutes on file somewhere for them to view. If there are not already, there should be. I think,
which they're
Take a look
supposed to give to my office
yes.
for files.
And you're like, hey, where are those things? And also it goes one step further with, and I don't know how this would be done. If you have a meeting on a Tuesday, you're forcing the secretary to come forward with a draft meeting. I know this would work for the Harbor Commission because we usually have a draft the next week and it's labeled as such. And then ultimately, when it becomes it's, a month later, it's approved, it becomes a final for publication. So I think they're all good thoughts. Just a question of where we go with here.
Just looking at the town's website real quick is if you go underneath the town council page, there's an agenda and minutes bullet, but it doesn't give you the rules, regulations, or how to get on the agenda. I think that's something we could simply write up and give to the clerk to have put on this website at some point. The issue, we've talked about meeting minutes in smaller committees and putting meeting minutes on the Secretary of State's website being an issue in the past that where if anybody misses one, the town gets fined. So if we're requiring that our smaller committees put on, I'll pick on the dog park. The dog park has to put their minutes on there every month and they miss a month. The town then gets fined for that. I think it's a good idea to have them on the town's website, but if we start posting things to the Secretary of State's websites, we're just opening ourselves up for.
We can get
I did not know that.
Yeah. So this came out, I think about 6-7 years ago. We looked at this and that was one of the main issues, unfortunately. Mr. Levesque?
A couple of things. One, I had the good fortune of knowing Ted and knowing what a valuable contribution he makes to the Economic Development Commission. I kind of stopped going, but you were there and you were doing a good job. He was also pretty instrumental when we were doing the broadband stuff. Very, very smart man. What you're doing around here, I have no idea. All right. The first thing is kind of interesting, to direct all boards, commission and committees, because quite frankly, I think that's what the law requires. I did actually the seminar, maybe all of you did, the AG open meeting seminar. If you look at the law seems to say if you are in an advisory capacity, not just are you going to do something or have the purse strings. If you're gonna be in advisory capacity, then you have to do at the beginning of the year, the meetings you're gonna have over the year, do before the meeting occurs, that you're going to have the meeting, the when, the where, the how, and everything. And within 45 days of that meeting, you're going to file with the Secretary of State. By the way, the first two have to be with the Secretary of State. You are going to file minutes of that meeting. It's kind of interesting because you mentioned the Harbor Commission. I have been looking for the Harbor Commission minutes that indicated they voted against the open shore access forever and haven't found it yet. But in any event, the problem I see with that is that we are asking people like yourself, quite frankly, on the Economic Development Commission, any number of people to volunteer and be a part of commission. We are not going to take this obligation into the town hall. I think it's almost be another full-time employee. Okay, so now we're going to ask a member of the public to one, give up their time and join the commission. Two, take on the obligation of filing the agendas, the monthly agendas, and the minutes.
Twice.
Okay, with the secretary. What's that?
They have to file them twice.
All right, you know, you can bring that up when you're talking. The doctor's probably right. Take this twice. That's what you guys always say, right? Take this 2 times.
I'm just reading the draft. The draft of the
anyway.
minutes has to be posted and then the approved.
And one of the
version has
problems
to be
that I
approved,
have
has to
with
be-
this
it has to be
community
posted twice.
is that I don't think we would necessarily get fined, Mr. Hamilton. I think that the person who had given the responsibility might get fined or get that letter from the Attorney General that said, we're looking into this. Now, you and I, most of the people on this council could care less about getting a letter from the Attorney General. No offense, but I haven't committed a crime. I don't worry about it. But normal people in a normal walk of life get a letter from the Attorney General. They don't like it. Now, fortunately, in this town, we have a group of public citizens that overview our activities, but would never think of filing a complaint on something that was unimportant or spurious or just kind of an annoyance. They would never do something like that. So we can assure all the people they don't need to worry about that type of complaint. But nonetheless, we couldn't guarantee it. So we have people that were essentially, please volunteer your time and please do this. This is one of the things, quite frankly, which is an unintended consequence of a very good idea. And that is that it's a good idea for the people to know what's going on, but it's a bad idea to put a stricture on it like we're doing. Okay, quite frankly, a better stricture is what the clerk does, put a thing on the door. All right, most people that care about this town, at least sometime or another, come by, look at the door and say, oh, there's a meeting tonight. And we give it out to the newspapers and everything like that, and it's on our website. So I think that we have been kind of skating a little bit, and I don't want to change anything with the direction to the board. I think we can say safely at this time that all of our boards and commission have been doing what they've been doing for a long time, and we're not going to change that. With respect to number 2, I love your language. I really do. I don't think it's that cumbersome. You send a note in. Well, we have a thing that says, here's the time you have to get it in by. And then if we decide that it's not going to be put on, we give you a response that just says, look, it's not our job to do this stuff. And actually, one of the things I bet you was in your criteria there, you know, we're not going to put it on because it's spurious or it's derogatory or it's fallacious or it's somehow defamatory. I mean, all of those things could be coming in. And I know not you, Ted, but I'm just saying. But I love the format of this. And believe it or not, earlier in the year, because one of the things that does happen is the clerk has to deal with people coming in saying, why did my thing get on the menu? Or usually saying, she didn't do it. All right, and she said, yes, I did. We have nice discussions like that. But in any event, but I would love to see us to adopt something like number 2. That somebody sends a letter and this is what I'd like, we either put it on the agenda or we send you a note that says this is why we didn't. Period. And in a reasonable time for you to be able to actually get whatever, marshal whatever resources you want for it. Okay, so I love that. I don't know if we're ignoring number 3, but I will tell you that I had a tremendous amount of problems with number 3 and for a number of reasons. One is that unfortunately, we live in a somewhat litigious society. Being a lawyer, I guess I can say that without losing my credentials. The council is often faced with issues that could very quickly move to litigation. When the charter was established, and let me explain this also to you. The charter is the foundational document of our government. It is not, however, an ordinance. Okay, it is not designed to be an ordinance. It's designed to be an expression of the intention of the body politic at the time it was adopted. You will see, however, that it does specifically include almost all the activities that the government does. I would actually point out that it's kind of interesting. Trash compacting, trash transfer, anything to do with trash is not in the charter. I keep wondering when one of the more conservative members of our council will say, you know, we shouldn't even be in this business, or perhaps one of those government groups might come in and say, you know, I don't know why you guys are in the trash business. But in any event, the council, our attorney, and I'm going to say this too, I consider Kevin one of my better friends, my good friend. We have been close friends for a long time. I never call him on council business. All right, he is the attorney for this body. He actually should be addressed either by the whole council or by the administrator. Okay. And when he gives an opinion, I'm an attorney, Len's an attorney, but his is the opinion of this council and of this government. And all of us should have the good sense to adhere to it. Matter of fact, if you don't adhere to it, you can cost a lot of money when a judge eventually decides that you should adhere to it. And people on this council know that very well. Okay. I would never interfere with the discretion of the solicitor in what he feels he can and cannot discuss. The idea that everything should be in writing, almost all of this activity is somewhat free flowing. I mean, Kevin could probably put a couple of Mercedes on order if we said to him, every time you give an opinion, you put it in writing and file it with the clerk. Not that it would change the opinion, but if you're going to put it in writing, you're going to do a little bit of extra work, get the citations all in order. It's going to be 3 pages instead of, no, you can't do that. Okay, so I just think it would be a fundamental violation of the relationship that this council has with its attorney, whose obligation and job is to protect this town, to make any sort of request like that. It was in, I mean, I can understand, Ted, why you find it, because there it is. It's in there. Don't get me wrong. But it's not what we should be doing. And as I said, the charter is instructional as opposed to.
Thank you, Mr. Levesque. Any further questions, comments from councilors? I do want to just touch base on a couple, just to reiterate a few things. I do think the process for the meeting minutes, we do have a process, and I believe that the core bodies, the council, the planning board, zoning board, EDC, pension investment committee, housing authority, and school committee all do post. Do they all post to the Secretary of State, or Right. So I do agree that to go beyond that and start to require some of these boards would probably be a little bit of overkill for some of these boards that only, or commissions that only meet once every 3 or 4 months. But is it fair to say that any meeting minutes though should be filed with you? So as long as we have a process for that, I think
Yes.
that's important, and we should make sure that those groups are getting their minutes to the town clerk. There's always room for debate on what goes on the council agenda.
On the council page right now.
Yep.
It has any person wishing to speak before the council should contact any council member or the town clerk and be asked to be put on the next agenda. Due date for submissions is noon, the Tuesday prior to the upcoming regularly scheduled town council meeting. Any request for an agenda item must involve an appropriate matter of business before the town council and is subject to review and approval by the town council leadership. All meetings are open to the public.
So I think that we've addressed this a few times. It's come up recently with certain agenda items. So I think we have a good process. I can honestly say probably 99% of the items end up on the agenda.
A quick question for information. What you just read, where is that located?
On the town council page? On the
Okay.
website, under the town council section, it has the meetings and then it lists out.
Okay.
And if something doesn't make it to the agenda, it's usually because we're asking for more backup or something along those lines. Is generally, we try to, we do try to get, if it's important to the town, if it's town business, concerns, issues, we try to make sure that gets on the
Oh, no,
agenda.
but we've had the issue before, so the only thing, maybe it'd be nice, maybe just to print that out a couple
Yeah.
places. And put it down in the library, put it here, just because, I know we're not trying to hide anything.
No, it can always be better, and maybe there's something we can do there. But I do think, as far as being open and transparent, we do try to accommodate most issues that come before the council. And then the third one, just in my own opinion on this, I do agree with a lot of your comments, Mr. Levesque. And I do think that anytime we're in open session, whether it's the council, planning board, zoning board, and the solicitor gives an opinion, that's all fair game. And it's all been recorded and it's been documented in the minutes. The other things, I do think that, there's attorney client privileges there, and I don't think that those are all necessarily need to be, documented for the public. I think there's a line there that the attorney, and there's some confidentiality, but in public meetings, it's fair game. It's all recorded. So, if you want to look for something from a meeting, it should be available. Or if it's on video, one of the two, but there's usually minutes or a video. So, and that's just where I stand on the 3 items. As far as what the next steps are for the council, I mean, is there any action here that needs to be taken by the council at this point?
Usually at this point, we just receive it and place it on file. It is a good conversation that we have, and we appreciate you bringing it forward to us. But I think that's the only action to take, just to receive the letter. And, I'm sorry, Mr. Gleason, it was under your auspices, so it would be your.
The only thing I would ask, are you satisfied with the conversation that we've had tonight? Did we miss anything?
No, I don't
far
think
as you're
anything was
concerned.
misunderstood, and I just want to just lay it out there that there's no single driver for aggregating all these thoughts. It's more just like just presenting it to you, and sometimes, in the absence of authoritative information for the council, I hate to use the word that a alternate narrative can be spun, and you just want to try to stay above that fray. And I do suspect, though, in terms of the town committee, boards and commissions, they would welcome some sort of uniform guidance. In the past 6.5 years, I've been either a chair or a vice chair of a town committee, and I know that we file a minute And, but it just seems like maybe that could just be something that's more widely disseminated, what the expectations are, because in the absence of expectations, sometimes people make their own rules, and then that can create a misunderstanding. And I think that's the biggest thing. We're a small, tight-knit community. We just want to limit the potential for misunderstanding to develop. And then namely, item becoming a part of the agenda, it's the courtesy of like why this was declined, and there's nothing nefarious going on. I think that people just want to be assured, maybe it's just going to be heard at a later date and time. And again, for the item number 3, if it's something that's a matter of public record, just try to make it easier for the public to discover that record and not necessarily have to drive to town hall. I'm just trying to see as we modernize and, the rate of technological changes allow perhaps alternate ways to disseminate that information. So I will say I really appreciate this conversation. It really does a good precedent for like what the expectations are. I just hope that you can consider maybe providing some uniform guidance to the committees and all that, et cetera, et cetera.
And if I may, just one last thing about section 3. I don't know if you saw it, there was an email from Mr. Rayner with Kevin Gavin's thoughts on it. That's not, you don't consider that classified information, do you, Solicitor Gavin?
That's just an example.
Yeah, I mean,
Kevin,
I have no problem with that being repeated because it's accurate.
I mean, the last line, I'll just read it. It just says, without question, the sentence in section 508 cited by Mr. Peets does not supplant the basic and fundamental principles of attorney-client privilege and confidentiality that broadly apply to communications of the town solicitor with town officials, departments, and employees. So I think that pretty much sums it up. Why attorney-client privilege items you're not going to see them.
Mhm.
So I want to bring that to your attention that it has been discussed. Okay. So at this point, I don't have any motions to make, and I thank you for bringing this before us, Ted.
All right, you're welcome. Happy to do it.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay. We're gonna move on to new business number 5. Neighborhoods are for neighbors letter. Mr. Gleason.
This is another item brought forward from correspondence. In this particular case, a letter was written and went in as correspondence. We've seen this from an individual in Portsmouth, and not the only person has complained about the disruption of their particular neighborhood due to short-term rentals. Just as background, the short-term rentals ordinance was put in effect in 2018 and became effective beginning in 2019. So it's about 4 years old. The best publication I thought we could look at was presented to me was Short-Term Rental Regulations, a guide for local governments put out by the National League of Cities. And if you bear with me, I just want to highlight some of the things. I'm sure it was good reading for all of us, but a necessary evil here. Just some of the comments that stuck with me was in the forward, it talked about local leaders having to grapple with the competing benefits and challenges. In particular, how to ensure a healthy stock of affordable housing, how to support local tourism and economic development opportunities. One of the top priorities for city leaders today is to ensure that residents and visitors to the communities have access to safe, affordable lodging. Well, first off, in the case of Portsmouth, there aren't a heck of a lot of places to go to as far as hotel motels go. So basically, they're all now in residential neighborhoods, and they're basically businesses in local residential communities. The report itself was based on an analysis of 60 short-term rental ordinances, and the guide laid out a detailed overview of the best practices for cities to develop and pass short-term rental regulations in their communities. Some communities are just getting into this. We've been into it for 4 years. A lot of the things that are said cities and towns should look at, we have already done. We have a 4-page ordinance that probably could use some review like other ordinances in town, and I think that's basically where I'll end up with this, if you'll just bear with me. Couple other things. In the introduction, it talks about short-term rentals represent no shortage of challenges for local leaders as they can affect housing availability and affordability, local tourism and economic development, neighborhood well-being and health and safety. Many cities have learned important lessons in navigating these complex issues and offer some best practices for others to learn from. The regulation of short-term rentals has proven to be an important and effective tool in making short-term rentals work for all parts of the community. The key data points that were examined in this paper were look at how many short-term rentals are operating in your community. What is the breakdown between hosted room rentals versus home rentals? Where are the short-term rentals operating in your community? What neighborhoods are most affected? What is the average daily price of short-term rentals versus hotels? A lot of this doesn't really apply to Portsmouth because we don't have any hotels. Occupancy rates, et cetera. The common goals between the 60 cities were to prevent the loss of rental housing stock. If people are coming into your town as investors and buying up properties and just using them as Airbnbs, et cetera, let alone the shortage we have of low-income housing, it's just making for a difficult realty market, in general. The goals are to preserve the residential quality of neighborhoods, something that we seem to have an issue with here. They allow economic gain for residents. They support tourism in a balanced way, ensure health and safety for guests and residents, capture tax revenue. I'm not really sure how that affects the town, whether we are in fact getting tax revenue above and beyond property taxes. Balance the needs and rights of property owners and neighbors, slow or prevent overgrowth of short-term rentals. They tell you to pass your regulations early. Establishing the regulations gives city the power to intervene when necessary, making it much easier to limit the spread of short-term rentals before they have proliferated than it is to retroactively remove them from their market. Establishing regulations also becomes increasingly controversial as more stakeholders have a vested interest in seeing them maintained. Even cities that have not yet faced the negative impacts of short-term rentals should pass regulations to regulate the STR market before they proliferate. Common hurdle cities face is what to do with the pre-existing short-term rentals once a new ordinance is passed. In 58% of the cities reviewed, the NLC ordinance analysis, in this analysis, the cities required exiting hosts to comply with regulations or apply for a permit or license. Cities must communicate early and clearly with existing hosts about their responsibilities under a newly passed or revised ordinance to give them time to meet the new regulations. I just bring it.
All of that is on what's filed with the thing. I don't know if I need it to be read to.
Well, I don't think the general public has heard it. Let's say,
It's on the website.
okay. You bear with me, I'll be finished with it. The other part has to do with determining fines and fees. With the analysis being that fines should range between $200 to $2,000 per violation. Okay, ours are not quite that high. Lastly, enforcement. The purpose of the regulations should not just be to capture additional revenue, but to minimize and mitigate the negative side effects associated with the uncontrolled growth of short-term rentals. Cities need to move away from reactive to proactive enforcement when possible. Effective enforcement is key to an ordinance's success. Without regulations that clearly define what a short-term rental is, a database of units being operated and contact information for these units, cities are effectively rendered helpless in enforcing their regulations. Thank you. So basically, I don't know that Leah is on. The other thing I wanted general public and the council to be able to see is how many short-term rental properties we have in the town of Portsmouth and what the compliance rate is for adhering to our rules and regulations. Is that something you have, Ms. Hitchens? She was on, I don't know if she's still on.
She's gotta be able to read it up. While we wait real quick, I'll just make one quick comment that it's to enforce the rules and regulations, it's a complaint-driven system where an aggrieved party needs to contact the Portsmouth Police and say, there's a rager going on. Can you please come out and check it out? If that doesn't happen, then we can't send a zoning enforcement officer there the following week to initiate a violation or a fine and bring them to Minnesota. So sending a letter to the town council is great. But if it's a week or two after the event happened, we can't do anything about it.
I would
If there's an
agree
aggrieved
100%.
party, if somebody's having a rager next to your house, you have to pick up the phone and say, hey, this short-term rental is going out of control. Can you please come down and check it out? I mean, if you read her letter, which
Can I talk about that for a second?
Can we just, we'll just finish up. I'd like to have Piers.
I just, if you read this and if there was, if the buzz bus was down on the street and it was blocked and there were 90 cars parked on the street, that's clearly a violation. But we can't do anything about it in the past because the police never went down there and caused for a violation to be issued. Or
I don't know if that happened in this particular case,
it
but
didn't.
I
I pulled the police reports for that specific property and it's 4 pages. And
after the fact.
today.
Yeah.
Today.
No, I mean, the report was done after the event occurred.
No, there was no report period.
Okay, there wasn't a report.
What I'm saying is we've got a letter.
Yeah.
But no police report to attach
Okay.
to that letter at that event. So now we can't use that letter as evidence to go back and say, hey. We're not an enforcement body, we're a legislative body. Unfortunately, Chief Peters and his staff are the enforcement body. If nobody calls them to come see it. The tree fell in the forest and nobody was there.
So
You are so deep.
I would agree with you 100%. What I found was the same, after speaking to Major Morse today, is that without a complaint, there's no benefit to moving forward after the fact.
Right.
You can't do it you can't have an event on Friday and complain on a Monday.
Right, it's
Yeah,
just-
which is human nature, but in fairness to the people that are living in that environment, some of them, and if I was living in the same situation, would be afraid to complain because of the type of people that are in the rentals, first off, that are there to have a good time at the expense of everybody around them, and or their landlords. But I would like to say there is one great tool right on the town's website in the short-term rental section where there's a phone number where you can call in that information. I don't know if it's kept classified, your information, but I did call it and it was responded to by Jen West, Richard Rayner, and the police chief. So we also have that ability to report these ragers that you talk about could happen in the neighborhood. But yeah, you do have to report them. What has been brought forward and, we have areas in town where nothing happens with Airbnbs and short-term rentals. We have other places that are similar to what we have at the 2 beaches in town. We have bad behavior,
Right.
So, I think we should just take a look at the ordinance again, see if there's anything that could be improved upon. And, pass the word that, basically, here's your solution to getting somebody down here to rectify this problem of blocked parking, people driving the wrong way on streets.
All of them. I mean, it's,
Parties. I mean, if you're basically renting a 2-bedroom short-term rental, our ordinance only allows for 4 people there. You can't have all your party goers stay overnight. That's grounds for enforcement by the police department in and of itself,
Correct. But again, there has to be a complaint that says that.
Absolutely.
And
Come on, you can take it outside or let it.
no, this is not an argument, it's just, this is just a discussion of how to help this young lady fix this problem.
Right.
Or any aggrieved party in town fix their problem
I
is
see you.
until there's a complaint lodged
I
with the
agree.
chief, there's nothing we can do,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
We got a couple over here.
Yeah, this is a problem and we see where it leads. It leads to Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, where there is no community and it's all rental properties. So the short-term rentals make sense actually more sense in a community like Nantucket, which is difficult to get to. So once you get there, you have to stay there. It makes no sense in Portsmouth that has a large tourist attraction. The restaurants down in Island Park and elsewhere are mainly patronized by people who can drive there. They're local people. We don't need people coming in from Connecticut and New York and Massachusetts to stay in this town to keep these businesses afloat. So the town has very little economic benefit from these short-term rentals. They don't make sense in a very accessible place like Portsmouth that does not have a large tourist attraction. So what's driving this? What's clearly economics. The reason why these things exist is that people with enough money to buy third and fourth and fifth homes are finding homes in a community near the water, which is by nature then very attractive to people who want to come down here on a weekend during the summer and party, which is great for the person who has turned what was a residential home into a business, into a small hotel. I don't see how the town gains from this at all. So, and it's clearly, the lady who wrote this letter clearly is not the only person who's being affected by this whole situation. So I am very interested in considering Mr. Katzman's item as well, which looks at trying to apply some sort of perhaps tax-based disadvantage for people who want to come in here, buy houses in Portsmouth and turn them into small businesses. Again, this is something that benefits the investor, but the benefit to the town is extremely small and the harm to the town is considerable. So I think we should be taking some steps to try to make this a less economically attractive option, because that's the only thing that's going to stop it.
I think I disagree to a certain extent with you. I do think there is some benefit to short-term rentals. We have Roger Williams right across the bridge and no hotels really anywhere nearby. I know a lot of families that come for graduation and other events at Roger Williams, at Portsmouth Abbey, at Raytheon, at New England Boat Works rely on short-term rentals to be able to come visit our town. And I think there is some benefit to that. And I think we want to welcome those activities and well-behaved guests.
Right.
I also think that short-term rentals can be done properly if people follow the rules. I did a quick search. None of the houses that are listed as short-term rentals in Island Park allow parties or have occupancies of more than, 2 or 4, 1 or 2 bedrooms each. So they're clearly violating the rules of our town. They're violating the rules of the listing. I think, yes, the neighbors should call the police and complain, but and I apologize if I'm not that familiar with our ordinance right now, but I think some of the burden needs to be on the owner of the property as well. Short-term rentals, owners have noise monitors, they have smoke detectors, they have security cameras. They need to know what's happening in their house. And if they own a house and they're renting it out to people that are having ragers and bands and 90 cars parked out in front of them, I think the owner should be fined.
They should be. But until a neighbor complains and we send the police out there, it didn't happen.
No, I
That owner's
disagree. I
not gonna
think,
turn himself in.
yeah, but I think there is grounds for, being stricter about enforcement, because there are so many tools at the disposal of short-term rental owners these days that they know this stuff is happening in their house. If they don't, then they should.
I don't disagree with you that they know what's happening.
Right.
But
And-
they're not gonna turn themselves in, and unless somebody lodges a complaint, there's nothing we can do.
Why do they have these houses? To
Right.
make money. What's their concern? To make
Agreed.
money.
So I think we're going to refer this. I mean,
But can I just bring
Yeah.
up a couple of quick points, and I agree with
quick
you.
points.
Well, first, when I received this, I was very concerned because we actually have referred to this citizen on this, and we haven't mentioned her name. And what I'm concerned about, and perhaps you could tell me, did you indicate to her you were gonna put this on the agenda? Her letter?
It was on the previous agenda.
It was on the previous agenda. She's well aware it. She may in fact speak to me.
She put the correspondence on and you continued it to this date?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Because I was very uncomfortable with that idea. That we were actually having a correspondence that was sent to us. On the agenda. Okay, unless they gave us a permission. I don't really think there is reason to be apprehensive and fearful. But nonetheless, a lot of people respect their privacy and don't want to have their stuff on an agenda that's going out throughout the town. Secondarily, I think that we should explore this. It is a complicated issue. The value of your house and my house is dependent on how good the educational system is, how good the police system is considered, how good the public works system is completed, and also whether or not people feel that they're free to use their property as they best see fit. Okay, all of those things go into whether somebody decides to buy a property here or decides to buy a property elsewhere, and that all affects the value of the property. Portsmouth is a community with, I believe, the number I was given was 80% of the tax bills go to people within this community. I, by the way, also think it is a very good idea, and I think that's in our current ordinance, to have a contact person on any short-term rental and any, so we can, if something's going on, we can give that person a call and wake them up in Arizona. And just say, guess what? We're about to knock down your door unless you figure it out. But again, I agree with you that it's an issue that I think several are gonna come up, and I quite frankly know Dr. Ryan has been talking about this ad nauseum, I might say, since I met him, and that I think it would be a good idea to look at.
You have some?
Just a quick question, just out of curiosity, how many fines have we issued to short-term rentals in like this last summer?
Answer, Leah was trying to get on. I don't know if she can still get on, but the bottom line is we have about 160 short-term rentals
Registered,
that are
yeah.
registered, and in August, we sent about 25 letters of noncompliance. Now,
Do you know
there isn't a fine on immediately. Well, it depends on what happens, but it is, for lack of a better description, it's a progressive discipline. So there's a first letter, there's a second letter, then we can revoke the
Is that for
license.
non-compliance? Like what, like not being registered, or is for like
No.
noise
Yeah.
violations?
Just
Yeah,
violation.
so we contract with a company. And what they do is through their algorithms, they can scour the internet for advertisements. It's not just Airbnb, it's all short-term rental sites. And then they cross-reference that with our database, our list of registered short-term rental operators. And then where there's discrepancies, we're notified that there's a discrepancy, and there's a letter that goes out to the registered owner of this property. 9 times out of 10, they will come in and they'll register the property. If that doesn't happen and they pop up on the system again, they'll get a second letter, and then we can bring them to municipal court, or if they were previously registered, they're still operating as a short-term rental, we can, there's all kinds of measures we can take within our ordinance. I know that, I mean, reading the tea leaves, I'm thinking this is going to come in our direction here pretty quick. But the bottom line is, we have already started working on this. I mean, so we're not immune. We get these letters as well. And it has been a number of years now that the ordinance has been in effect. And there are some tweaks that staff is anxious to discuss. With respect to how this happened, just please remember that for as many people that didn't want short-term rentals, there was a pretty active community that did want the short-term rentals, which is why it was a very contentious discussion. And the ordinance was enacted pretty quickly. And we knew at that time that we're going to have to come back to this at a later date, which is what we told the council we were going to do. Because at that time, there were relatively few short-term rentals. We had the company take a look. There was less than 25 at that point, if I remember. Obviously, it's blossomed and it's time for us to take a look at it again.
Thank you, Mr. Rayner.
Again, I'll just go back to it's complaint driven.
Right.
And there's not just things underneath the short-term rental ordinance that the police can fine for. There's noise violations, there's who knows, disorderly conduct, all those fun things. But in terms of enforcement and penalties and revocation of permits, any violation of provisions of this chapter shall be subject to a fine not more than $100 per day for the first violation, $250 for the second, $500 per day for the third. Any subsequent could lead to the revocation of their permit to have a short-term rental. This particular property, just based on the correspondence we have received, sounds like it would be in that revocation. Now, how does that hold up in court as we go forward and somebody says, it's my property, I have the right to do these things and all that fun stuff? If they're willing to sue us, go nuts.
Okay, just
I was gonna say, but I think in that particular case, unless I'm mistaken, they have not been fined, have they? So, I mean, I don't believe there's any fines, I'm guessing, have been issued at this point, but the ones that, the 25 that were alluded to are just for not filing your paperwork by December 31st for the following year. That's
Correct, because
those are
there's
the only.
been no call to the police that I'm aware of that says there's a rager going on at said property.
Correct. The other thing is, so I think the onus is on the town. I know it's a yearly inspection by the fire department to look at the equipment that's installed, the smoke detectors, et cetera. But also there's supposed to be enforcement by the building inspector to find out whether all the documents that we've asked for are posted.
Is something coming across?
yeah, they just.
That's Leah right now.
Yeah.
But if I could just finish before she jumps in. The part that concerns me, especially in this area, is that there's a requirement for one off-street parking space shall be provided on the same lot on which the short-term rental is located for each bedroom as determined by the building official. Each required parking space shall not be less than 10 feet in width, 20 feet in length, exclusive of drives and maneuvering space. Where the required number of off-street parking spaces cannot be provided on said lot, then legal on-street parking spaces along the frontage of said lot, one space per 20 feet of frontage, may be utilized to meet the parking requirement. Where the total number of parking spaces required by this section cannot be met, the permitted occupancy of the dwelling shall be reduced to conform to the available amount of off-street and on-street parking spaces. I firmly believe that should be looked at in areas of Island Park that are small. I mean, I've seen the pictures. There's 40 feet. I don't believe a lot of those houses have 40 feet of frontage, you know, and I don't know if that's been looked at by the town. So I just point that out.
I don't disagree, but not all of those might be short-term rentals. I mean,
But
we've got residential properties down there
If I
that,
could-
that don't have enough parking. So I think
So
you have,
obviously,
you know,
we need to
I think
take
you
a
gotta,
more holistic approach to
Right.
what we're talking about here. We're talking about short-term rentals and we are on this. However, we do get a lot of complaints where the impression is this is a short-term rental, when it's not a short-term rental. It's a property that's been rented, usually to college students, and they're there for a semester or 2 semesters, what have you. So it doesn't fall under the short-term rental ordinance, but we're still getting complaints about
Right.
those properties. So that is.
we gotta look at the
That's
big
going to
picture.
trigger a bigger discussion when we review this ordinance.
Did Leah want to say something?
Can everybody hear me now?
We got you now.
Sorry, I'm unable to be there in person. I think there was some specific questions from Mr. Gleason about how many we have and what percentage don't currently comply. I'm not sure if Rich answered that, but we have about 160 registered short-term rentals. And in August, I probably sent out a list of 25 non-compliant people. But I do agree with pretty much everybody on the board that there is some room for improvement, but we do have a fairly good foundation for a short-term rental. Actually, communities look at ours as being pretty good and robust.
So then, I mean, if there's no further,
I got one question for the planner. I know we're reviewing the whole ordinance. I believe there's discussion coming forward. If we were going to be looking at something in amendment of the short-term rental, when might we look at it? Are we taking the position that being winter, we don't have to worry about it until next June, or? I mean, I know you all have a lot on your plate. I certainly do. So I'm not, but I'm wondering, the discussion that says we're looking at it, when might we see something in response? If anybody.
Well, I think that if there's a unanimous, have the administration, town planner move forward with looking at revisions, I'd be doing this tomorrow. And I have already started looking at how we can improve the ordinance.
Just,
This would be separate from town ordinance revisions.
Okay.
just as an FYI, this is also being taken up at the state level. They formed a working committee. So we're trying to work parallel with what the state is doing so that we don't get cross-threaded and have to do this twice.
Is that part of the whole housing legislation that was passed in the last session?
I don't know that it's tied to that. It's obviously part of the bigger discussion about creating more affordable housing in neighborhoods, but I think there is a push to, or there is a recognition that we need to address short-term rentals. And I think the state is looking to do something at the state level. So we'll be trying to make sure that our efforts are kind of in concert with what they're doing.
Thank you. Thank you, Rita.
and I know you're gonna want to speak, Mr. Fitzmaurice, but just before you do, so I think from the council's perspective, referring this to staff for review and recommendations, because you brought up a good point. I think if we could get something, if there are going to be changes, we want to get them enacted before the peak season, which is, generally around the spring and summertime. So this is something that would become a priority, for the staff and the planning department moving forward. Mr. Fitzmaurice?
Thank you, Mr. President. Larry Fitzmaurice, 50 Kristen Court. We have been characterizing the short-term rental owners. I would like to remind people that we drafted this ordinance in the beginning to have actually two types. One is the person who is an absentee owner who owns the property and is operating essentially a business. I think we all understand that. The other one is an owner who is resident in the property and renting out rooms in order to afford to continue to live here. So I want to make sure that we maintain that dichotomy and an understanding that in some cases, that's the type of people we're dealing with. Thank you.
Fair point. Thank you, Mr. Fitzmaurice. Okay. No?
You can't get one without the other.
Mr. Green, come on up.
Tom Grave, 110 Third Drive. It bothers me that the council doesn't realize that this is the third letter that this lady has submitted to you.
It's more than a third.
We're well aware of that.
Yeah.
One of you is not. You didn't even recognize this one. This lady needs some help.
I was aware of the letter. I thought it was put on the agenda, but I have seen not only this letter, I've also driven by the place. I also have seen the other letters from Island Park. If you want to insult me, buddy, do
All
a
right,
better job,
okay,
all right?
Let's just.
This lady needs help. She is asking for help. She may not know the right things to do and how to handle this. Please help the woman out some way. All the people in this room.
Discussing.
What?
I think that's what we're discussing.
That's not trying to help you. It's not what you're talking about in helping this lady. You've got a large problem and you're talking about that. This lady also has a large problem. This is a small problem in the overall scheme of things, and I understand that.
What's your
But
solution, Mr. Grieve?
Okay, hold on, hold on.
What is your solution?
Mr. Levesque, hold
You're
on.
standing up there saying
Mr.
we
Levesque,
should have a
Mr.
solution.
Levesque.
I'm listening.
my solution
Okay.
is for you to ask the chief to go talk to her. Find out what's going on, where it's going on. Get the police involved because they're the ones that have to do whatever
So
enforcement
you
is going
want
to
me to
happen.
tell the chief how to do his job?
All right. Let's,
Who, by the way, has been
Mr.
doing this
Levesque,
for like 20
please.
years.
Mr. Levesque, I need
He
you.
doesn't even know what's going on probably
certainly
because the
does.
letter's coming to you.
Who do you
All right,
think
gentlemen,
got the-
enough.
What's wrong?
All right, Mr. Levesque, stop. Mr. Grieve, I understand your point.
He didn't
I-
have
This
one.
lady
Just
needs
one
help.
yellow paper.
This lady needs help. Please help her.
I think we all agree with that.
We are working on it.
Boy, he's like Superman.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. My name is Ashley Beecher. I live at 268 Riverside Street. In my neighborhood, we have 41 homes. And out of the 41, we have 11 Airbnbs. We have 12 summer homes. And 16 of those are full-time residential homes. So obviously, there's a problem. I've addressed the problem. I have made several phone calls to the police, to the short-term rental hotline. I have sent emails. And this has been going on for over 4 years. And what I would like to see, I know there's two sides to every story. There are the people who are running these businesses in running commercial businesses in residential neighborhoods. That to me is a problem. And I would like to find the loophole that's allowing that problem. And only you can do that. I've tried, and I think I came up with a couple of the loopholes, which are in the original ordinance. Okay, what I would like to see is perhaps we should try to put a cap on how many short-term rentals are allowed to operate in residential neighborhoods. 11 is way too many. Our neighborhood has been destroyed. The fabric of our community has been torn. The peace and the safety is no longer constant like it was when I first moved in 2005, 18 years ago. I actually didn't even have to lock my doors on my home or my car. Not so anymore. I don't know who the people are in my neighborhood. If you do the math, 11 short-term rentals, and you have 6 months, it's about an average of 1,000 people within that 6 months coming through your neighborhood. Now, how is that for a community? Is that the kind of community you would like to live in? I would think your answer would be no. We don't know our neighbors anymore. I have my neighbor Susan here. I know her, she knows me. And I know my other neighbors who are full-time residents. Do I know the 4 houses that surround me that are short-term rentals? Do I know those people? No. Constant change every week for 6 months. Stranger after stranger after stranger. Not only is it a problem with noise. Yes, some have ragers. Not all have ragers. Some like to fly their drones at night, hovering in people's windows. But that's real safe. I feel so safe.
Yeah, where are you? Where do you live?
268 Riverside Street.
Oh, thank you.
Sure. I had to witness public urination from about here to you, sir. A gentleman deciding to relieve himself on the side of the short-term rental home. I had the owner of that home come up to me. He had rented his home to several young men from another nation, I won't say, but anyway, he came up to me and he goes, Ashley, can you tell me how many people are in that house in my rental? I'm like, excuse me? You're asking me how many people you've rented your short-term rental to? You don't know? You don't know how many people are in your house? Oh, seriously. Seriously. Sometimes these people are really nice and they're enjoyable. Not everybody's a bad person. These people are on vacation, but we are not on vacation. We live there. We work, we come home, we want peace and quiet. We want to enjoy what we work hard for and pay our taxes for, and we can't. Is that fair? Is that fair? These people that are owning these short-term rentals make between $50,000 to $70,000 within that 6-month period of renting. All good for them. I'm happy about entrepreneurship, but not at the expense of who lives next door to these people. I shouldn't have to suffer while they're making money. They can make money, that's great, if they learn to follow the rules. And there are rules written, but they're not enforced. There are phone calls made to the police department. There are phone calls made to the short-term rental hotline. Oh, we'll look into it, or, oh, you know, I had a call on the 4th of July, for instance. Fireworks, it's like being in a war zone. It's against the law in Rhode Island to have projectile fireworks. Not in my neighborhood. Boom, boom, boom. A foot from my roof. I'm like, oh my goodness, the roof's going to be on fire next. So I call the police department and I hear, oh, ma'am. And I respect the police. I honestly do. It's nothing personal. Oh, ma'am, it is the 4th of July weekend. You should be tolerant, you know? I mean, I'm like, I'm concerned about a fire. The houses are all on top of each other. I said, should I call the fire department and have them ready just in case? Well, I guess we'll send somebody out. Okay, so I'm just, you know, do I sell my house and move? Or do we try to find a problem so the full-time residents can still feel like there's no sense of community anymore. And I want to live in a neighborhood where there is a sense of community, and there's not. So if we can try to put a cap on them, if we could try to have mandatory check-ins, like, okay, you own a short-term rental. Your people are coming at 4 p.m. You should be there. Check them in, show them the rules, tell them the consequences of breaking those rules. And then when it's time to check out, check them out. Make sure there weren't any complaints. Make sure they did what they were supposed to do and they had a good time. I don't think that's too much to ask. I really don't. If you're making all that money and this is your business and you're destroying the fabric of the community where your business is operating, then why aren't you responsible for your people? I'm not the concierge. I'm sick and tired of people asking me, where should I park? How come I can't park there? Where's my piece? I'm not the one making the money on these hotels, yet I'm the concierge most of the time. And of course, I'm nice because that's how I am, and it's not their fault. And then we have a problem with the owners of these short-term rentals. If you approach them with a problem from one of their tenants, like say the gentleman urinating on the side of the building, or the people parking so you can't get out of your parking lot, your driveway, they get very rude and angry. And they have like a smear campaign against you. You're a problem. She's a Karen. And it goes on and on and on. So where's the sliver of peace left that I have? None. You know, it's like, we all want to have peace. We all want to get along. I'm not looking to argue with anybody. I'm a peaceful person. I want peace in my neighborhood. I want safety in my neighborhood. And I want a community where we have trust and respect for each other. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Peach.
Any further comments, questions, nothing online? All right, so, I mean, there's obviously been a lot of discussion tonight. I think the intent here is going to be to refer this over to the town administrator and staff to review our ordinance and come back with any recommendations.
Which it sounds like we're working on it in parallel with the state.
Right.
But I, back to the earlier point, I think we need to do this sooner rather than
Right.
later, so
We need to.
I hate to put the pressure on Leah and Rich and the staff, but it should be something we do in January.
Right.
Which only gives you a couple of months to really tweak things, but
Mr. President, can I ask? I would never tell anybody from our police department how to do their business. But visibility in the area might comfort and might discourage. And so if you have the opportunity, perhaps that might be helpful. Thank you, Chief. I think I could get you out.
Or the patience when people do call. Nope, that gets redundant.
So thanks. So we did this summer. So we haven't done that in the past. We did this summer, so probably about mid-August, probably beginning of August, I should say. We started hearing about the increased complaints. We didn't get complaints in previous years that I'm aware of or that we received. We were receiving and hearing about issues that were going on. So we did increase the presence of the officers do checks. There's mostly parking issues that we are hearing about. I have spoken to the town planner and the DPW director about perhaps changing the way the parking is down there. That would help alleviate it. But I don't know if there'll be unintended consequences of generations. People have parked on that street and be able to park on both sides of the street. And people have just used common courtesy over the years and be able to navigate through the street. And you know that you don't park directly across from someone because you know someone has to get through there. So with the short-term rentals and the increased amount of short-term rentals, I don't know if that's happening. And that's some of the complaints we're having where people would park directly across from each other and an officer would have to go down and have someone move the car. So we're trying to look at other alternatives and perhaps have parking just on one side of the street. But I don't know if that's going to create more problems because I know Mr. Gleason referred to it earlier as you get a parking space with 20 foot of frontage and you have to have it in front of your house. So if you only park on one side of the street and now someone has a short-term rental on the other side of the street, where are they going to park? So we're trying to figure out, and I think that would probably be the long-term goal as we review this, but the officers have, and we'll continue to make sure that we go through the area. But I do encourage everyone to call. Mr. Hamilton said it. Having the emails, and I know the last individual that spoke has called a couple of times in reference to the fireworks, but having someone call when it's actually happening is the best thing that we can possibly do. And when we receive the emails the next day, or the town administrator or whoever receives the town council, unfortunately, that doesn't do anything because we're not there. We can't document. We can't document when a bus couldn't get down the street or have an officer down there and figure out what the problem is. So that'd be the best thing that we can do. If somebody calls when it's happening, that would be a huge help to us and a huge help as we're moving forward to solve this issue.
That's one, Chief, several months ago, we gave broad authority, I think, to repost. Have we been doing that? Has there been any activity in terms of posting new?
This would be the first opportunity to use that new authority that was granted by the council. We were prepared to do it to Mountain View, but we're still waiting to have it move those mailboxes down at that location. So we're prepared to make that location down the 3 parking spaces down at the end of at Confidence Point on Mount View.
Okay.
We're waiting for those residents. They still haven't moved the mailboxes. Once they do, I believe DPW already has the signs ready that we're ready to put those up. But this would be the second opportunity for us to review it based on that new authority.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Chief.
Susan Panaggio, 324 Riverside Street. I just want to address the calling the police thing. When I was before the council a couple of years ago to get that ordinance going, I went through, I can't even describe what I went through with one of the hotel operators. So bad that I went to court in Newport and had no contact papers drawn up, but it turned, you've read it, it turned into a circus, but I paid money because the vile and this man said to me, I called the police. You know what happened? The police came to my house and told me to go in the house and watch SpongeBob SquarePants as they giggled at me. Memorial Day weekend a year ago, when somebody was murdered in a short-term rental in Newport, we had a bad weekend on my street. It was a Sunday morning. I couldn't come to the town hall, so I went by the police station. And I talked to the policeman at the desk. I said, you know, it was really bad last night and this and that. And I said, you know, look what happened in Newport. And he yelled at me. Don't you ever say that to me. That was my friend. And it got really ugly. He's yelling at me. Called the police when the body was laying in the driveway next to me. There was an arrest that night. I don't remember. They're the same ones that threw the aquarium in the glass aquarium in the cove. Nothing happened to them. But I just had to say, I've called the police. I can't tell you how many times I've called the police. Can you tell I'm frustrated? That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Ms. Banaggio.
Mr. President, if I could just finish up here. I want to personally thank the women that have come forward, one of them being the original letter writer, as you probably surmise. But when the council, when the staff looks at this ordinance, I know Councilor Ryan has mentioned before what things have happened in Newport. Newport has banned, or is moving to perhaps banned rentals in residential areas, short-term rentals. And we should look at such radical moves in that respect. We should look at everything. You know, maybe it's hard to reverse it at this point. I don't know, but there shouldn't be anything that we don't look at to help protect people like these two folks in the environment that they live in, my personal opinion. So, thank you.
Mr.
Thank you.
President, I regret, ma'am. If you talk to an officer at our police station and he gives you that attitude, or he comes down to your house, get the damn number. Cause I assure you that guy's gonna be at least at a minimum spending some time at the beach, or that woman. Okay, and maybe be brought up on charges. This department has a lot of pride in its service to this community. And you tell that gentleman that somebody treated you improperly, and that person's gonna have hell to pay. And I mean that sincerely. I've known him for 15, 20 years, and he would never allow that. Not to be sexist about it, but certainly not to a woman. He might let it get away with me, but not to somebody like yourself. So just try to find out who it is, or even just the time they were on the desk.
So a woman down the street from me, they were having a big party next to her house. She called the police. But she say the police were taking selfies with the people at the party. I mean. That's so
Call and ask for the chief on Monday or whatever, and I assure you that will not be, and I can also assure you not to anticipate or fear any repercussions. That will not happen. You tell him and they will deal with it. And I mean that sincerely.
I'm already suffering repercussions. This guy that I went and took the papers out in court. The neighbors asked me, he boxes my car in, it goes on and on and on and on. There's no end to it. So again, do I appear frustrated? Not enough. So I don't know what else to say about it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. I'll be sure to speak to her after the meeting. This is the first I've heard of any of this, so I will definitely speak to her after the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Okay, so we discussed the motion? We haven't, yeah,
We've given direction to the staff, and I think that's,
okay.
but I do believe that we should have it January
January
timeframe so that
timeframe.
we have time to advertise properly, have a hearing and get it enacted before the season starts.
And clearly this problem is ballooning very rapidly, so.
All right.
Do we need a vote to give that direction? Or
I think Mr. Rayner's got it loud and clear. Okay. All right, so let's move on to number 6. It's provide direction to the town administrator to develop options for residential property tax structures or programs favorable to Portsmouth primary residence property owners, such as different tax rates for owner occupied versus non-owner occupied properties, or primary residence versus non-primary residence, or other tax rate structures, programs, or exemptions. Mr. Katz.
Thank you, Mr. President. Couple of things. First, the reason that this agenda item is worded so prolix is I deliberately did not want to limit this to one kind of thing. I didn't want to use the word homestead. I didn't want to use the word, because those are all defined things. And if we discuss any of those things, it's captured here in terms of Open Meetings Act, other structures and programs, and exemptions. I want this very wide open to explore what options we may have. So every year at budget time, it often comes up, and specifically this last budget season, lamenting that I wish we could do something with residential property tax rates that maybe favors those who live here and disfavors those who don't. Whatever type of program that might be. And, I did a bit of preliminary looking into it, Rhode Island General Law, Title 42, Chapter 5 has, if you go there, you'll see a slew of generally applicable provisions, and also some specific ones like the town of Cumberland can do this, and Johnson can do that, and Newport can do this, because those communities ask for that legislation. And we may want to ask for legislation too. I don't know that this will specifically help, to Dr. Ryan's point. How long before we implement a structure will it result in less of this activity, just simply based on the economic disincentive? I don't know. But I do know it would be a more fair tax structure. And in terms of giving direction to, all I'm looking for from the town council tonight is to give direction to the administration to begin a process of determining what our options might be under existing law or under like programs in either neighboring communities or around the country. And let us know not only what those options might be in terms of different tax structures, but what the cost of operating those different structures would be. How do we know if it's owner occupied? What's the administrative overhead to implement a program like that? I don't want this, we're putting a lot on the administration to go do. I don't want this to take any precedence over the short-term rental issue. I think that needs to happen faster. So I don't know if this is something, I'll defer to the administrations, whether this is something that can be remotely completed in any kind of comprehensive way by next budget season. But if we don't give them direction to do it now, then it won't be even by the next budget season. So this is just really to kick off a process that lets the administration gather together types of programs and exemptions and whatnot that we can consider. And then make, as the policy setting body, make a decision come that time that it's ready to be considered.
So you're looking for all the options that are available under federal and state laws to say, you've lived here for 45 years, so you can have X discount. You've only lived here for 10 years, so you don't have a discount until you get to 20 or something.
Or you
like that.
live in the house that you are paying property tax on. You don't live in the house. It's a
Right.
second home. So even if you've had that second home for 50 years, if it's not your primary residence, maybe we tax it differently.
You lived here for 50 years, but you moved to Florida in the winter times and spent 181 days. So you're referring to?
Or it's possibly,
Okay.
or people who just own a summer place because
Okay.
they have enough money to do that sort of thing. And that's great, but let's assess let's explore tax rates that favor those who live here and are residents of our community.
I think along with that, there was. I don't know how we can do it, but a better job of advertising the current programs that are out there now that people can take advantage of that. Don't get utilized as much as they can. Senior exemptions, veterans exemptions, and things like low income exemptions that. A lot of people just don't utilize, either because don't know they exist. I don't want to say that they're too proud to use them. Some people are.
Maybe.
And some people say, I don't want to use, I don't need to use them because I have the money to pay, but.
Mr. Rayner, I think if memory serves, some information is included when tax bills are sent out.
That's correct.
Yeah.
The authorized exemptions that can be claimed are included with your tax bill.
So there is a lot of people don't look at those because they have automatic
Because it's
payments set
escrow.
up or it's in escrow or through remote, right? So they don't, yeah.
Right. Certainly, we tried to deal with this, I'll say almost on the fly when we were doing the budget last year. And I think that looking for a more comprehensive look at it. And I actually, Mr. Hamilton, I agree with you that perhaps one of the things we could do is review all of the exemptions we give that are Gold Star parents, veterans, whatever, all of those. And the needs-based exemption that I did for the elderly that now extends to all people that is based on their income, which helps a lot of people stay in their house. So, take a look at all of those. And then generally, perhaps something in the nature, I think Mr. Gleason had suggested at one point of a homestead. I mentioned that I wasn't comfortable with it, but nonetheless, I can see that it would be part of a holistic look. So all of those things, I think we could ask to have available to us when we're doing our budget next year.
Yeah,
And I
if
think-
I could just tag on that, the current law, there's a section that says, in lieu of a homestead, any city, which by the way, reading all that section, it's like Johnston can have a homestead and Cumberland can have a homestead. It's like by town and city, they say you can have a homestead. Then there's a general in lieu of a homestead exemption, any city or town may divide this class residential property into non-owner and owner occupied and adopt separate tax rates. So there's things we might be able to do under existing law. And there's other things that we may need enabling legislation to do.
No, I used to deal with that, every town and city came up with somebody's idea and put it in, so that's why you have 37 different, provisions there. And if we decide maybe we need enabling to do something, those are usually handled fairly easily by the legislature.
All right, so just to kind of circle back here, we're gonna refer some additional stuff to the town administrator. And again, I think this is something that, we've been kind of chipping away at for a while now. So this again would just be some additional options, as Mr. Gatzman has stated tonight. Just it's not the priority as the short-term rental, but it is something that would be following right behind.
But it does relate to the short-term
Yeah.
rentals because
Yeah.
part of how the town regulates
Yeah.
them is by
That's-
levying
that's
fees
those-
and taxes. So we're, this should be a holistic view of all of this I think they kind of have to happen together, one set of regulations for short-term rentals, and then we've got a tax document that sort of ignores that and levies fees without looking at what's already being done. So I think they kind of need to be considered together.
I don't disagree. I think we're gonna move it over to staff's court and let them come back with some information for us in order to make a better decision.
And I thank my fellow council members for considering the item.
Okay, so then let's move on to number 7. It's a discussion of handicap accessibility and provide direction to the town administrator regarding possible new and or amended ordinances and regulations relating to ADA compliance issues. Mr. Levesque.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think the letter is fairly self-explanatory. I essentially am asking that we direct, at least for our review, the consideration of waiving any fees that are associated with installing a American Disability Act compliant bathroom or other structures, including interior and exterior. An amendment to the zoning ordinance that provides that setback requirements for any ADA compliant structure be waived. I actually had a case one time where I had to get a variance for a ramp for somebody who was in a wheelchair. And an ordinance that would that say that any value added to a structure by an ADA compliant building or whatever would not be assessed as value for tax purposes for a period of time. Probably one of the 4 or 5 issues that I really wanted to address when I ran for council was anything to do with Americans with Disability Act. And one of the reasons I put this on the agenda, I was hoping actually the administrator, as he has done on some other occasions, just said, oh, we already do that. And so hopefully, but if we don't already do that, perhaps we can take a look at doing it if this council so decides. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Levesque. So I don't think we need any action because we haven't taken any on the other 2. Just we're just adding more on your plate, Mr. Rayner.
I just, for clarification, you're asking for them to bring something to us and then put it out to a public hearing to modify an ordinance potentially?
That would be, unless somebody says, oh, no, we can't do that. Oh. Yeah, unless somebody has strong objection or insights they want to add,
Sure.
That would be my request. That would go to the administration for them to review and bring something back in the form of, for us to review.
Yep, great.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to number 8. It's a request approval to award Church Community Housing Corporation the CDBG Administrative Services for July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2032. Is that right? 10 year?
Can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
It is correct. It's for 10 years.
Yeah.
The planning department does do work with the community development block grant administration, and we work with one particular consultant in Newport, and our terms had sort of run out back in June. So we put out on qualified professional services to basically do a qualified base selection. And I think you have the one that we chose in your packet. We received 3 companies, one from Church Community Housing, another from G&G Municipal Consulting and Grant Writing, and the third one was from Rhodes Consulting Group. We used 4 employees all in my office to evaluate the 3 proposals and then score them on the 3 categories, basically with organizational experience, staffing plan and capacity, and technical approach with an understanding of the project at hand. And all 4 of us staff members ranked very similar in that you can see the firms that we had ranked with Church Community Housing Corporation getting the highest number of points, with G&G and Rhodes Consulting ranking number 2 and 3. So the planning department is requesting the town council to award Church Community Housing Corporation the CDBG administrative services for July 1, 2023 until June 30th, 2032.
Mr. President?
Well, I have a quick question. They're the folks we've been using for a while, right? Church.
That is
community,
correct.
Administrators. Yeah. So. I don't want
I'll
to steal
just-
your thunder.
No, I'm no thunder. I'm just gonna move to award Church Community Housing Corporation, the CDBG Administrative Services Contract for July 1, 2023 to June 30, 2032,
Second.
as presented.
Any further discussion?
Question.
Yeah.
Ms. Hitchens, just out of curiosity, basically, they both, are the other competitors, around the same hourly rate? Not seeing the bid package here.
Well, what's interesting, the bid package for church community housing is in your package there. They all did their hourly rate differently. But it all more or less came down to about between $150 per hour and $175 per hour. And Church Community Housing Corps, since we do have worked with them in the past, they know our routine, they know the types of grants we apply for, and they know the number of hours essentially that we use with them, which is roughly about 80 hours per year. They did rank in the lowest ranking in terms of monetary costs.
Thank you very much.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Mr. President, I move that the correspondence be received and placed on file.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next, we have future meetings. Coming up this Saturday morning is our pilgrimage over to Prudence Island. Followed by.
It's gonna be a pilgrimage based on the weather.
Well, actually, Mr. President, you know how I am about non-secular events. I will not be attending the pilgrimage.
Oh, all right. So it's just a journey then. And then we have October 23rd. It's where our venue will be at the Portsmouth High School for that meeting. Followed by November 13th and November 22nd. Okay,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you all. Have a good evening and we'll see some of you on Saturday morning. So